right, another week, another bunch of books that I probably shouldn't have bought, but I did anyway, because I have a problem. Went to Savers recently, as you might have seen in my recent short, and they had some really cool stuff. Sometimes Savers doesn't pull through on the book front, but sometimes they do. And this time they had a lot of really cool stuff. I actually had to be kind of picky going through it. And they had a buy 4, get 1 sale going on, as they always do. So I bought 8 books and got 2 for free, so that was pretty awesome. The first one was this old Bane fantasy. This is War in Hell. I bought this purely for the cover. It is an anthology edited by Janet Morris. The only blurb on the back says, "The devil takes the hindmost as C.J. Cherry, David Drake, Janet Morris, Robert Silverberg, and more prove that even hell can be made the worse for war." I just thought that cover was awesome. On the back, it's a wraparound. On the back, we got Satan painting the foreground. I thought that was really cool. I don't know, it's giving me some Doom vibes. I don't know anything about this, but it's giving me some serious Doom vibes. What do you think, guys? Rip and tear? Rip and tear. Alright, so that was War in Hell. And I bought these next 2 purely because of the covers as well. Now, that Savers always has a ton of Gordon R. Dickson books. Gordon R. Dickson, along with Mercedes Lackey and Piers Anthony, is one of those writers that I just see all the time in thrift stores and used bookstores. And it makes me think, like, is their stuff really that bad that people are getting rid of it? Or do they just write so much stuff that it just ends up all over the place? Maybe it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. I don't like to be too pessimistic about authors I've never read. But, yeah, as always, they had a ton of Gordon R. Dickson. And this time around, a couple of covers really caught my eye. And I was interested in picking these up. So the first one we have is The Harriers, Book 1, War and Honor. This is also a anthology of some sort, created by Gordon R. Dickson, but it also has the talents of Chelsea Quinn, Yarbo, S.N. Lewitt, and Steve Perry. So maybe some kind of science fiction version of Thieves' World going on, maybe, where it's a bunch of different writers contributing to the same fictional universe. I don't know anything about it except for the fact that I love this cover. It has this nice embossed cover where everything is highlighted in the foreground. Got that woman in the power armor with that huge gun and those really cool, funky looking jet planes going overhead. I thought that was really sick. I don't know. It has a pretty severe lean to the spine there, but otherwise it's an okay condition. It's readable enough. And they also had Book 2 of Harriers, Blood and War, which also has a cool cover. It doesn't have the embossing like the other one does, but it does still have a cool cover. I don't know if that's the same character, or if it's just a very similar-looking woman in similar power armor. We got some kind of huge stealth bomber or something flying overhead. I don't know, I thought these covers were awesome. I might never get around to reading them, but I did think they looked cool. This one is not in nearly as bad shape as the last one. It's got a slight lean to it, as you can see, but it's not too bad. Much better condition than the first one. And this was the first thing I saw on the shelf, which made me really excited. This was Quest for Lost Heroes by David Gemmell, which is part of his Draenei series, which I started reading this year with Legend. I thought Legend was awesome. It made me really excited to check out more of David Gemmell's stuff. I would read this sometime soon, but apparently it is a sequel to another book, or at the very least it has characters that are introduced in another book. And so I want to find some kind of reading order to read the Draenei series in. But I will get around to it eventually. I love that cover. Very spooky, with the corpses pinned to the trees and stuff. Very cool. Who did the art? Says it on the back. Cover art by Royo. Don't know who that is. Another artist that goes by some kind of pen name. Hey, you. Do you like epic adventure? Do you like sword and sorcery? Well, then you should probably check out our next episode of the Elusive Exclusive Book Society, where we'll be discussing Jarrell of Joyery by C.L. Moore. Just gonna wait for that plane to pass us by. Yep, there it goes. There it goes. Tune in this Monday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on my channel for this new episode of the Elusive Exclusive Book Society. It's going to be a lot of fun. In fact, I'll show you just a little bit of what you can expect from this episode.
I'm just going to say, they were hunchbacks without the hunch.
At some point, do like the neighbors just look over to the castle next door and are like, what are the weird, pale, creepy people doing over there?
Statuesque ginger. So horned up she can't think straight. Murderous hot pants.
I know for a fact who won every single one of the arguments between C.L. Moore and Henry Kuttner. Like, once she gets mad, I just...
Henry, do I have to open the hell portal? No, honey, you don't have to open the hell portal.
I'm sorry, honey.
Was I allowed to do that? Am I going to get in trouble with the guys for doing that? I don't care. It's on my channel this time. I can do whatever I want. So yeah, tune in this Monday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on my channel for some real sword and sorcery action. And if you watch the short, you would know that just below that shelf, or just on the shelf below David Gemmell, we had this Michael Moorcock, Elric at the End of Time. Thought that was very cool. I've never found any of the Elric, or really any of the Eternal Champion multiverse books in used bookstores or anything like that, so I thought that was very cool. This is the 7th book of the Elric of Melniboné series, or at least the 7th book that Daw published in paperback. I think it's actually, yeah, it's not really a novel or a fix-up like the other ones. It's just a bunch of different short stories that are kind of tangentially related to the Elric saga. So I'll probably read it after I finish the Elric saga. I do love that iconic Michael Whelan cover. Michael Whelan, no one can paint Elric like Michael Whelan. He just makes the character look awesome. So yeah, I really like that. It's kind of in rough condition otherwise. But you can't really tell. The front's in fairly good condition, but the back is all roughed up. The pages are a little roughed up. But I was very fortunate enough to find that before someone snatched it up. And right next to it, I missed it at first, but right next to it was another Michael Moorcock. This is Queen of the Swords by Michael Moorcock. Second in the Corum Chronicles series, one of my favorite fantasy series of all time. It's also in pretty beat up condition. I don't know if you can tell. It's got a lean to the spine a little bit. The front cover kind of like bends outward a little bit. Some wearing on the spine. It's definitely been read before, as it should be, because Corum is awesome. So I don't have this book in the original trade paperback format. I have the first book, Knight of Swords, and the third book, The King of Swords, but not the Queen of Swords. And unfortunately, it doesn't match the covers of the other two that I have, but I will be adding this to the collection. So these two will definitely be going on their designated Michael Moorcock shelf next to The Witcher, because, as we all know, The Witcher is every bit as much Michael Moorcock as Warhammer 40,000.
Hey, now don't start that again!
Now, anytime I'm looking for books at a thrift store or a used bookstore, and I find a book that's in a trilogy or some kind of short series, I always try to find the other books in the series on the shelf to see if they have them on the shelves. And luckily, this time I was able to pick up an entire trilogy. This is the 7th Sword trilogy by David Duncan. It actually started out as a trilogy, and then in like 2012, he wrote a 4th book that I think was just kind of like a sequel to the original trilogy. But I'd never heard of it before, but I loved the covers because, as you may know, I love Daryl K. Sweet. And Daryl K. Sweet did some awesome work for the covers of these books. Really cool stuff. So the first one is The Reluctant Swordsman. And then the second one, with an even better, even cooler Daryl K. Sweet cover, we got The Coming of Wisdom. That kind of wizardy figure in the front there. Pretty cool. And then the third one actually doesn't have art by Daryl K. Sweet, unfortunately. This cover art was done by Romas, another artist with a pen name that I don't know. But yeah, this is the third book, The Destiny of the Sword. Still a very cool cover. I think it fits in with the other two, even though it's a different artist and a different style. But I don't know. They all look very cool. I'm very interested in this series. It seems like some kind of what you might call a portal fantasy. We called it portal fantasy when I was growing up, and now because there have been so many anime that take on that kind of style, where someone either dies or walks through a portal and ends up in another world, they call it isekai now because that's like the anime genre's take on that. But it's apparently about some guy who dies in our world and is reincarnated in the body of some warrior in a fantasy world. That's about the only thing I know about it. The books are very beat up. They have very severe leans to the spine. All three of them. But the spines are broken in multiple places with lots of creases. And that's good news for me. Actually, I always like when I find books that have very beat up spines because it implies that they've been opened and closed a lot, which means they've been read a lot, which means they might actually be pretty good. So even though I have never heard of that trilogy before, I'm very excited to check it out. And the last thing I picked up was a little more classic science fiction. This is Richard Matheson's The Shrinking Man. This copy is also very beat up, but still very readable. And a nice little short science fiction novel, The Shrinking Man. Ira from SF Words of Wonder talked about this book a while ago. He talked about it in a video that he did a long time ago, and he said some pretty interesting things about this. So I might read this sometime soon because I like the concept of this guy who something happens to him, he keeps shrinking. It says, Scott Carey was a normal-sized human when he passed through the chemical fog. He was the size of a doll when the basement door slammed and locked behind him. He was the size of a match when the Black Widow awakened to feed. The Shrinking Man, the incredible SF classic of a man stranded in a nightmare world of horror, his own cellar. That's fantastic. All right. Get around to that sometime soon. But yeah, those are all the books that I got from my recent trip to Savers. Guys, let me know if you have read any of these books, what you think of them. And until next time, as always, farewell and keep reading.
Now don't start that again.